Dear friends, hello. Today, the dear guest in the company AMarkets is Anton Vesenny, who is a blogger, owner of the YouTube channel Lazy Investor, also a traveler and a great family man. The first question is probably predictable. Why is the blog called Lazy Investor?
First of all, the main goal for this blog in general is to invest without a high barrier to entry, both from the point of view of funds and of competence and so on. I mean, when a person, it applies to any one of us, right? You see, I started investing with a small amount, literally 1,000 rubles. Almost any person can start with such an investment. Yeah, to slowly grow your competence and your funds with some reliable, understandable, simple, let's say tools for a long-term investor. At the same time, well, the philosophy of a lazy investor has now changed over the past 7 years. It has changed a lot. I mean that it has transformed into something so deep that it can be called a philosophy. So this is, above all, the desire. Yeah, the main driving force. The desire to do what you like, where you like, and how you like. I mean, to live where you want. For example, like in Bali or any other country you like, and to do what you like. I mean, it's not necessary to engage only in investments, you see. The money should work without your operational activity. We only manage them. Consider them a tool, right? And in fact, to relax, to enjoy life. I mean, these are the main points for building the philosophy of the Lazy Investor channel. You see? And there are no special restrictions on the tools we use, starting like with business to stocks and other securities in almost all the world's markets. Yes. But the most important thing that person needs to be happy is, first of all, freedom and opportunities to do what he or she likes. I mean, some kind of passive investments. It's more about passive ones. Lazy, passive. For me, they are synonymous words, sort of.
I'd like to ask you a question. Why did you choose our company? What do you like the most? What would you highlight specifically? By any means, not as an advertisement, but in an unbiased way. You, as an experienced person, an expert, tell the reasons.
First of all, I'm a blogger, right? Probably my work itself, as of a person who constantly does reviews, is to test different sites. In fact, that's how I found AMarkets. And now, when I have already moved to work more in the stock markets. For me, AMarkets, so to speak, remains a platform where I'm guaranteed to be able to withdraw my money. Honestly earned on some speculation, yes. On some trading idea, and so on. I mean, for me, there is above all such an opportunity to get a wide range of tools for trading. Why do I like AMarkets? You have a humane approach, first of all. In addition to reliability of a sort. Your employees are nice people with whom it's interesting to meet. Drink coffee and socialize. This is actually quite a unique approach in the Russian market, because I tested almost all brokers of the Russian market. Yes, Forex brokers. And in general, how to say it? You have unique features that I like without reservation.
Very nice to hear. Thank you very much for the flattering review. Anton, you are a man with insane productivity. How many hours are there in your day? I think there are more than 24. And do you have a team that helps you to prepare, to do all this? Or are you doing everything by yourself?
You forgot that I have about 50 projects, information projects and websites on various subjects in which I'm involved. And of course, I would have never done it by myself. I also have 24 hours in a day like everyone else. But there is a team, there is a backbone that I, in fact, can say that I taught them myself, that helps me. If someone watches videos from my team, thank you very much. Indeed, without the team, delegation is impossible. In particular, they even help me with the blog, you see. By myself, I can't monitor such a big amount of all of the world's financial news to be constantly informed. Especially now, when we, are actively traveling. I mean, of course, I can't work right now. I normally spend several hours a day at work. And currently this time is less. I always strive for efficiency, maximum efficiency, to be able to spend more time with my family. Trips like this one and such an active lifestyle help me to see what can be delegated, those things I'm doing more than I should. The areas my participation is not needed because it has no effect there, and so on.
Back to the team. Do you have a huge staff? Are these people with whom you constantly communicate, or is this some kind of outsourcing?
The team is outsourced because with my traveling, it's impossible to maintain an office. Somehow it needs to be managed, so there must be communication and so on. So that's why I only outsource. I have about 5 people. At its peak, our team had 10 to 15 people. Basically, all the people, and this is my quirk, aren't hired by ad. I haven't had such a successful experience with that. So all the people, I teach them myself, starting from the very basic tasks and proceeding to the more complicated ones. So I now have, in my view, full-fledged assistants to full-time analysts. I believe they can work easily on the financial markets because they have become very competent after so many years. I am very glad that I am able to surround myself with such people because they really help to improve my projects.
You really have the specialists with a capital letter. The content is cool. I think that everyone who is familiar with it will absolutely agree with me. Your Telegram channel has such a description. I am publicly investing 1 million rubles. 6 years ago, I quit my office job. I keep a blog, travel. I have 21 countries on my account.
Yeah. I need to count.
Now I live in Bali. Is it true?
Not now. And when I wrote the description, I lived in Bali. In March, yes. I already moved to St. Petersburg.
You regularly do the training. You already have the self-made students. Are there, say, examples of students who left such feedback as, Anton, thank you for the training. We implemented all lessons. Of course, did as you said, invested, looked for promising projects, also quit office clerk jobs, and now we earn in a passive way.
Yes, I think there are many such people. But I can't say that only I should take credit for this. In fact, when people see my blog for the first time, they see the logo of a person who sits with a laptop at the beach, enjoying a huge income. They become inspired. So it's already close to how they feel. And in fact, I simply help them cultivate, so to speak, or somehow fertilize this grain, which they already have within themselves. There are certain people with a certain mindset who want to be cosmopolitan, to be free from any obligations, and so on. So, I can't say that I should take credit, right? I'm just here, as some kind of fertilizer that helps them reach their goal. We have quite a bit of loose forms of training. You can pick when to study, anytime you want, from anywhere in the world to do your homework, pass the tests, and so on. This flexibility alone already allows people to work with a different perspective. You can study at night. You can study on the beach. I've recently visited a conference, sat next to, a lot of webmasters were there. And the man next to me said, "Are you a lazy investor?" I said, "Yes." And he leans over to show the photos on his smartphone where he sits with a laptop on the beach. And he has the logo of my blog on his laptop. And for me, it's an indicator that we have such a separate, so to speak, caste or group of people. Every person has it. But there are people who find it really close, who do not want to depend on anything and want to live freely, regardless of any circumstances.
I agree that the desire for independence is really, possibly, the core of every person. Back to the social branches of your activity. The next question is from our marketing team about your YouTube channel. I have information that at the beginning of this year, you had no more than 1,000 subscribers, and now there are more than 3.
Yes, about 3.5, maybe.
How did you manage to achieve such progress?
In general, 3,000 for me is not the best count. In fact, when it comes to YouTube, I have pretty high ambitions because I see how people are involved, how they perceive me in a completely different way, perceive the information that I broadcast. In fact, it's just my audience that comes from Vkontakte, Telegram, from the site. The approach is simple. In every media you see, there is a certain audience, right, that finds it convenient to use this particular media. I mean, in Telegram, people want to receive information that will be of practical use. In Vkontakte, I have an audience that wants to quickly receive relevant feeds for news, some briefings, or one can say some practical data, but of a more informative nature. Here on the website, there is an audience that comes mainly from the search and by search request related to investing or trading. So there are different audiences everywhere, different approaches. Of course, I try to accumulate the whole audience, so to say, target it, give them what they need, and in fact, now YouTube doesn't give me any bonuses. And there's no secret, really. It's just that my audience came to watch me.
Let me clarify the question. Have you used any marketing tools for this? I mean, they say that in this case, we are talking about organic growth. Organic is when you have such a steep channel that you don't need to do anything for its development. Subscribers simply find you on their own. Is that the same for you?
No. I believe that I still have much to improve on. Well, in particular, I watched your briefings and saw how you were managing YouTube, right? So for me to reach the same level, I need several years at least.
Recently, you've added this post for your subscribers. The billionaire, the head of the hedge fund, and writer Ray Dalio believes that the investor can succeed by going against the crowd, choosing what others ignore, as they don't want to take risk. Then you ask your audience, do you agree with this approach, or do you think that a cheap company can always become even cheaper? What do you think about this?
My investments are always intertwined with some cases that come from my life. I mean, there is the psychology of a large crowd. There is the psychology of a small crowd. That applies to everything, like traveling, for instance. A large crowd travels on New Year's holidays and spends money inefficiently, getting a fewer amount of benefits, sensations, and so on. Because there are a lot of people everywhere. Everywhere is expensive, etc. The same thing happens on the markets. When there is a large crowd, it can never be effective. I mean, starting with funds, right? When they want to invest large amounts of money into some kind of asset, they move rates and their average price is already higher than a small private investor has. I mean, in fact, I always vouch for the fact that you need to be in this small crowd to know how the small crowd would act next. This is how you can act in the most efficient way. And of course, there is the rule that a small crowd is always more effective. I totally agree with it.
I agree that if you know how to determine where fewer people are going, you can actually understand the future trends. Let's get back to your projects. Well, probably the predictable question, which one brings the most revenue?
Well, just like investments, I adhere to the rule of diversification of cash flows. Something comes from advertising, from my Telegram channel, from our blog, and so on. So some financial companies reach out to me, which I am not ashamed to tell people about, and, first of all, give an independent assessment of them. This is my requirement for every advertiser. You can pay for the review, but my assessment will be unbiased. And the training also brings some cash flow. Yeah, and I've been engaged in training businesses for the last year and a half only. So one can rightly say that I'm just starting to do it. And websites also bring some cash flow. On average, I have a wide diversification in a portfolio. That is, I try to prevent any flow from going to one side for more than 30-40%. Well, maybe 1 month is more training, sometimes it's more sites. At different times, different areas become the main source of income. My approach here is absolutely the same as in regards to my portfolio. Diversification of cash flow is important for me because I already, how much? For 6 years since 2013, I have not actually worked anywhere. And when you, for example, live in the Philippines, on a small island, or in Bali, far away from your relatives, no one will help. You can only rely on yourself, on any knowledge you have, on sources of income that you've created earlier? Well, for me, it's a constant, never-ending process. I constantly strive to study something new, to create some new cash flow.
If I'm reading this right, most of these projects are still connected with financial markets. All of them, or maybe not?
I would say yes, for the most part. Well, for me, I don't have any more financial websites, actually. There are sites related to finance, but basically just a blog. Yeah, a blog for investments, because I understand that to make such a project, you need total concentration on it. And you need to put in the maximum effort. And to do such projects as my blog, you have to be involved. Blog and training is probably more about a kind of mission than about business. And the remaining fields of activity are more about business.
Anton, as I see, and as we have already discussed, most of the projects are related to investments. We also talked about the fact that through training, you really become an ideological inspirer for your students. I would like to understand, where did your interest in this industry start? When did it appear? What was a turning point for you?
Probably one word: Thailand.
The desire for independence, huh?
Yes, I visited it with my future wife. I don't remember, in 2011 or 2012, we went to Thailand and, lying there on a hammock, near the sea, in the evening, drinking coconut juice, I just looked at the stars. I thought, damn, I want to live like this forever. So we arrived there, and I was counting the days before we had to go back. So for me, it was probably the most important motivator to take action. You see, to do what would not connect me to anything. The work, finances, or some kind of geolocation and so on. Yeah. So that was such a force. A fuel for me to start learning. I didn't immediately start working on the financial markets. I was engaged in business and there were some offline projects. You see, I had some shops and outlets, which I also tried to delegate and so on. There was even a snowboard school. So you can see, I tried a lot of projects in different areas, yeah? And after trying all of this, I realized that you just need to do what will work, at least for decades, right? They've been trading on stock exchange for hundreds of years in America. It should also remain capital intensive. I can basically invest all the cash flows there and not be afraid that it will go away somehow. Actually, the funnel is narrow. In addition to financial markets, there are not too many industries that allow us to earn money from anywhere in the world. Yeah, and to do this in the long run with huge amounts of money.
Tell me, please, you are likely to encounter some pitfalls in this investment business, obvious to you already as a professional. So tell us, please, about pitfalls. What causes the greatest difficulties?
Probably people. Well, first of all, because we can calculate some kinds of behavior as a company. Look at some indicators, reports, which are difficult to fake. Yeah. But we cannot predict or calculate the behavior of people. And this was always a black swan for me. Now, for example, Trump with his Twitter dictates the rules of the game. The example of Trump tells us that it's impossible to always calculate everything. We will always have these risks, even if everything goes smoothly in economics. Everything works efficiently. We will develop, but there will always be people who will break these rules. Make the market less calculable.
Well, at the same time, I want to note that because we have the thing like Trump's Twitter, we understand that the markets will always be hot. In the end, when it comes to the markets, what we do not need is stability, lethargy, and lack of dynamics. Only if there are specific force majeure events, if there are stressful situations, they attract our interest because these moves, this powerful volatility, hide the opportunities that we really strive to realize.
I agree.
I know that right now, here in Montenegro, another rally of lazy investors is taking place. And I know that this is not the first event of such a kind. Why did you come up with the idea to organize such events? Maybe you have specific goals to reach. How was the rally, and how do you choose people with whom you spend a lot of time in such an environment?
I will start with the first question about the rally. We had it in Bali. The idea of the rally appeared rather out of the desire to surround ourselves with interesting people, also to meet readers and students. It seems to me that the main problem with constant travels around the world is not having a companion. I mean, I lack interesting people around me that like to travel, that think the same way I do, to share some experience and useful information, things like that. I lack this. And probably, out of this need, the idea of a rally was born. I mean, to travel with like-minded people who pursue the same goals, strive to earn remotely. Yeah, think with the same concepts. We quickly prepared a rally in Bali. We lived there for several months. You see, we rented a villa there. We invited people and quickly gathered a group. And we really liked the experience. All the reviews were positive. We got such a boost of motivation to continue doing this, right? Many participants asked for a family rally. Thanks to them, among other things, the rally was held in Montenegro. We've just recently completed it. We got very inspired. The rally was different because it was family-friendly. I mean, not only some private investors and private entrepreneurs participated in it, but people who took their families with them. We had about 15 children at the rally. The total number of participants was around 30, and there were 15 children.
Wow!
This experience is also, I will remember it for a long time, because we managed to teach each other. Let's say, group of participants, be it children or mom and dad. Each group of participants received some useful information. Well, I personally noticed some kind of transformation, positive thinking among the participants. Many have become more flexible who lacked it before.
All these people, are they related to your projects? Or is this not necessarily so? The main thing is to have a way of thinking, right?
Not necessarily. The main condition. Well, for me, the main criterion is the desire and opportunity to share some useful information. It's not just a meeting which I arranged to do some training there, but it's also a rally of interesting people, within which each participant shares some useful skill. Well, some useful experience. Even if he doesn't have too much to tell. Maybe he works at a regular job somewhere. He shares his experience. All the same, each person has a unique experience. And in many ways, it can be useful even to the most experienced travelers, etc. That's why the most important criterion is positive thinking and opportunity. The desire to share useful information.
Besides the fact that you possess such a colossal amount of knowledge, you are also an energizer. You like motorcycles very much. I presume that maybe fast cars too. You said that you even had a school for teaching snowboarding, right? So probably you also succeeded in this too. What else are you fond of in general?
When I grew older and after my child was born, my interest changed towards more peaceful things. You start thinking with perspective, more calmly, right? Well, now among my hobbies, of course, the most important thing is traveling. And I try to make the journeys more diverse. If earlier I had a task to come to a place, well, see how it feels. Maybe visit some sites. Visit some of the most interesting places. Now it's more about getting emotions from places. Take a ride, for example, on a motorcycle in Thailand through the jungle, right? That's what I call emotions. To dive with the sharks in the Philippines. For me, these are emotions. Yeah. So, as for me, I'm kind of an emotion hunter. I'm not limited to any particular thing. Here, we wanted to fly over Montenegro on a paraglide, maybe even today if we'll have the chance. There are very beautiful mountains, sea. There's a lot to see from above.
You are probably everywhere in Asia, right?
Well, Southeast Asia. We probably covered 90 or 80%.
And are you in Montenegro for the first time?
Second time. Well, I really like it right here. Both the climate and the price-to-quality ratio. Here, they are almost at an ideal level, you see? People are very nice here. All this, in general, makes a comfortable place to rest, right? Very close to Russia. For me, a 3-hour flight is like catching a bus. And so, here, you get generally a very, very flexible approach to rest. No need to plan it in advance or much beforehand. And for the children, it's also good here. Calm sea, no waves, and so on. I mean, here everything comes to a singular outcome. Very comfortable.
So, can you recommend, based on your experience, maybe the experience of others with whom you spoke closely on this subject, any country or region that you consider ideal for living with your family?
Probably I need to take a larger perspective, because we are individuals. For example, take the sea. For someone it is blue, for the other it is dark blue, right? And that's why it would be wrong to recommend something. For me, this would be the island of Bali. Yeah, well, this place is as close as possible for me. This is St. Petersburg, because if you don't consider climate, if not for the bad weather, it would also be an almost ideal place for me to calmly live there and leave it when I need to. And overall, my wife and I, for a long time we were looking for the perfect place for us. And we realized that, in fact, the ideal place most likely does not exist. Because we are constantly changing. And what we liked a year ago doesn't inspire us anymore. So for me, the ideal place is a kind of comfortable place inside. When I feel what I want and I do it at once. I mean, as soon as we decide to go somewhere, we have the opportunity to do it immediately. For me, it's like an ideal situation, you see, to be free. I mean, not attached to anything. For me, that's exciting. I have plans to visit all the continents. Right now, I want to go, for example, to Australia. Rent a car there and travel all over the continent. Live there, and then go to South America.
So what can you, also objectively, as professionally as possible, wish new investors and traders? Imagine it's like a pep talk.
Well, first of all, you should do this for a life. I want them to understand that it will last forever, that investments, as well as the financial markets, have existed and will exist for decades. You see, all this local profit, these local projects, they will come and go, but the financial markets will still be around. This is the main basic mechanism of how economics works. I mean, you can spend time on some local projects in business, or in some field of your own. But if you come to the understanding right now and build a personal financial plan, if you invest regularly, if you regularly rebalance the portfolio, if you understand how financial instruments work in general, you can use this knowledge for life. I mean, the main life hack is just like that. You don't have to pursue these local things right now, but take a global approach. Start investing, working on the financial markets. Well, of course, you should begin with a sum which fits you. You should do this for a life. Be ready to stay in this industry for a very long time. And it seems to me that such an approach will be as comfortable and effective as possible for people who are not yet working with a suitable deposit and a mindset to be here for life. So follow a certain plan. And then there will be no unnecessary moves, no matter if the crypto went up or crypto went down, stocks went up or stocks went down. I mean, you will consciously approach with a long-term investment plan. I mean, choose companies and assets that you will be able to hold for a very long time and be able to put up with big market corrections and so on. So that's it. Go for it for life. Invest regularly and do everything with your own personal psychological comfort. Perhaps this is what we wish for novice investors and new traders.
Anton, thank you so much for your time. For this conversation, I think the content will be extremely useful. All of it. Shout out to AMarkets.
Thanks for the interview. It was interesting. Best profits to all.